You're listening to the Run for Your Lives podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And this is the Run for Your Lives podcast.
This week, we are talking about the monster film Grabbers that was directed by Jon Wright and released January 23rd, 2012. And to have fun with this, maybe this isn't, hopefully it's not too awkwardly ironic and stereotypical, but we figured, we're releasing this on St. Patrick's Day. It's an Irish movie, so who better to come on here and talk with us than our great friend from Dublin, Ireland himself, from TV Podcast Industries. Please welcome Derek.
Hello, Daphne and Pake. Delighted to be here. Happy St. Patrick's Day to you.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Thank you so much, Derek, for joining us on this episode. And Derek actually picked the movie, and it was one that Pake had never seen.
Yeah, this is new for me.
I'm really hoping I nailed it. An Irish movie on St. Patrick's Day. I could have gone for one of the 95 Leprechaun movies, but I thought, let's do something special. Let's give you, it's low budget, but let's give you something like a real Irish experience. Go to the pub, have a bit of a party, get rid of some bad, evil aliens.
Perfect.
It might work.
I think it's perfect. I love it. It's another one of our famous holiday specials. Of course, in the past, we did Halloween on Halloween. We did Krampus on Christmas. And who could forget Thanksgiving on Thanksgiving?
Thanksgiving was magnificent. I didn't watch the movie, as you guys recommended. I didn't. I listened to the podcast, and the podcast was magnificent. I'm hoping that Grabbers is somewhere in between all of those movies, somewhere in between there.
Sure.
Budget's not too high. The fun's there, but it's still kind of low budget.
Yeah, it is. It is,
right.
But lots of fun. Yeah. Really, really fun. I was so glad that you suggested this one because I've seen it and I love it. So I'm just hoping that Pake feels the same way, but we'll find out in a few minutes about that.
Absolutely. Hard movie to find. I noticed. It's not been around, not really picked up by any of the main streaming services. I just purchased it through Google over here. I bought the movie so I could watch it for this. So if you are joining us and haven't watched the movie and want to watch it, you're going to have to pay for it, unfortunately.
Yeah, I rented it through Amazon Prime, and I think it was like $3 or $4, so it wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
It's cheap. And worth it, though.
I did as well, and I think the first time I watched it, it was on Hulu.
Right. Oh, great.
But that was like 6-7 years ago.
Right. I just got the feeling that the director, Jon Wright, is suddenly getting money into his inbox going, where the hell is this coming from? So many people are interested in Grabbers. What's going on?
Yeah, you can't help it. It's a fun movie. I feel like we are all starved for a little bit of fun right now, so I think that it's the perfect movie for us to cover right now. So I'm excited to get to break this down.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Well, why don't you go ahead and get into a little behind the scenes notes and stuff before we kick off our conversation?
I will. There was not a lot of information out there on this one. I dug a little bit for production notes to try to get some other information. But for my behind the scenes, the basic start, this was filmed in Ireland and in Northern Ireland during one of the harshest winters in Ireland in over 100 years. There were uncharacteristic blizzards, gale force windstorms, and sub-zero temperatures that affected production and created this very difficult shooting environment.
I remember that year really, really well. And when you say uncharacteristic winter storms and blizzards, wow. We talk about 1978 as being the last time that we had snow like this. In 2011, 2010, those years were really, really harsh winters for us. Wow. So, wow, how they got this film done during those blizzards. Unbelievable.
Yeah, and you couldn't even tell that there was any of that going on.
Exactly. They're probably out with hairdryers every day drying off the snow.
So many fields, too. Oh, my gosh.
Exactly.
The scenery was so beautiful, too. There's just something so green and brilliant about
Which I could tell
Ireland.
the scene where, you're following them while they're driving on the car, kind of along like the hillside, and there's that cliff on the edge. And I noticed all the grass and like the area around it looked kind of CGI. And I was like, why would you CGI the natural landscape? But maybe it's because it was covered in snow and they had to.
Just color the snow in green. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
So the budget for this film was $5.3 million. It did not make its budget back at the box office. It only grossed about $440,821.
Ouch.
Which is a bummer. I feel like people are missing out if they don't watch this film because it is a lot of fun.
Yeah. It is. It is definitely. Yeah, I don't think they'll be investing in a sequel to the movie, unfortunately. But Pake, as you say, you hadn't seen it before, so you're not alone in that, let's say.
Yeah. So the film is 94 minutes. Pake, bring on the synopsis.
All right. The synopsis, quick little synopsis here. When an island off the coast of Ireland is invaded by blood-sucking aliens, the heroes discover that getting drunk is the only way to survive. Sounds like a plan to me. I'm in.
Like, seriously, what a synopsis.
Right.
It's effectively Shaun of the Dead boiled down to one-line idea for a movie, basically. Off to the Winchester, have a few pints, wait for it all to blow over. Right?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I have to bring up about this is Richard Coyle, who played Kieran, will always be Jeff from Coupling to me forever. So seeing him in this role, there were some of those things that I'm just like, yep, this is Jeff.
I love it.
And Coupling was a show they tried to remake in the US, but it did not go over well. The original series, though, is really funny and very cool. Yeah, it's a great show. And Richard Coyle, he's always going to be Jeff. The odd man out.
It's really interesting, isn't it? Yeah, there's not too many of the cast that have kind of broken out. Richard Coyle is definitely someone that's quite famous, and now very famous with the younger generation because he has one of the lead roles in Sabrina's the remake of Sabrina the Teenage Witch on Netflix.
Ooh,
he plays
I didn't know that.
Kind of the bad guy, I guess.
I can see him doing that. I can.
Yeah, so he's quite central to that for the first 3 seasons. So people recognize Richard Coyle, but maybe not many of the rest of the cast.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I did the girl who I think her name is Ruth Bradley. She played Lisa. I have seen her in the show Humans.
Oh yes, very good show.
Which I really loved, and I'm so sad that it's not coming back for another season because I really, really liked it. And now that we're through this tangent as we drive down, talking about the actors and their other roles, maybe we should get started on breaking down our top 3.
Yeah,
absolutely. Run for your lives, listeners. That's totally my fault. I'm sorry. I always do tangents.
We do tangents very well all the time.
Yes. Yes, tangents are a really popular thing here. We go down rabbit holes so quickly.
Yes.
We just remember to steer ourselves back onto the focus after a while.
Oh, yeah. So, again, when we have a guest, we like to do our top 3s. Kind of makes conversation a little easier. And it's always fun. That way you can really kind of pick the brain of what the favorite moments and things of the guests who come in to do these movies are. So with that said, Derek, you're going to have to go first. Guest's honor. Okay. Or if it's an honor, maybe curse. I don't know.
Honor or torture. I don't know. I'm actually just going to say my first point really is the opening of this movie, because this is a small budget movie for these types of films, and it's set in Ireland. Ireland don't tend to put out these types of movies on the international stage. We tend to be known for little dramas about fields and farmers, or dramas about Dublin and relationships, and that's kind of it. So seeing a horror movie set in Ireland, in a small town in Ireland, is always really interesting. But the opening sequence on the boat, on the fishing trawler, effectively, where the first attack happens from the grabbers, I think is so well done. It feels like it's up there with most horror movies, done really well. But I suppose what adds to it is just the Irish accents coming out when you hear an Irish person react to the attack from the grabbers going, Jesus, as they get pulled overboard. It always makes it actually funnier, even though it's quite a terrifying situation. It's, it's as terrifying as something like Jaws or something like that. But I love this opening sequence. I think it's really, really well done.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I noticed there is a Wilhelm scream in there when
there is.
Skipper is taken out.
Yes.
It's like I always can pick those up and be like, ooh.
Absolutely. Yeah. Really well used as well. Yeah. It's but I suppose because this is the setup of the movie, this is the, you're not supposed to see the monster. You're not supposed to see what's going on. It feels like it could be the opening to Godzilla or something like that. You don't really know what these creatures are, Yeah,
really it kind of reminded me, we covered Cloverfield way earlier because at the end of Cloverfield, you see the satellite falling into the ocean in the background, which kind of like is what set off the events of Cloverfield. And so when you see this, like, whatever falling into the sea there, it kind of gave me that same vibe. Like, ooh, what terror awaits after this has fallen from the sky,
Exactly.
Yes.
And then they have bad times on the Sea Harvester, for sure.
Yeah, R.I.P. Sea Harvester crew.
Absolutely. That's my number one. That's my first point is just that opening scene. I thought it was a great setup for the movie. Who wants to go next?
It's me. Pake always goes last.
I do. You know it. You know me so well.
But luckily, Derek, you're here, so you get to go first, so I get a little bit of a reprieve. So I'm happy about that. So my number 3, when I was going through my notes and trying to figure out, okay, how do I want to do this? And then for me, I'm just going to go for it. The character of Patty.
Nice.
Oh,
because he is the best. I just think he brought so much of the humor, even though I feel like the other characters were funny as well. He had a lot of one-liners and a lot of just funny moments that I just adored. And he was quotable 100% of the time. It was, it was really hard when I was going through and picking what quotes. I'm like, they can't all be Patty quotes, but maybe they should be.
I think most of mine are.
I like that he had his own brand of what we would call moonshine, but I understand it's called poutine. Poutine. Okay.
Yeah, poutine. A potato-based alcoholic drink that's usually about somewhere between 60 and 90%.
Super strong, like homebrew vodka.
Very strong.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, kind of illegal in Ireland, as you kind of hear in the movie. It is illegal, but I think every household has some poutine somewhere. And every town and every bar does have a Paddy Barrett in Ireland. There's always one that's on the edge of every bar. Willing to tell you a story, and is always very funny once he's filled himself full of booze. So this is not an unrecognizable character if you've ever been to Ireland.
I have not, but I grew up in a small town and we had a local restaurant, and there was only one restaurant. There's always one that's kind of like the regular that hangs out there all the time. Not drunk, just he's the one with all the stories. So for me, I kind of related to that, but everything. I mean, mischief follows him around. He catches the female grabber, and it spits at him and then spits at his friend, which I think it was marking them. We can talk about that later.
That's possible.
Because it seemed like the male was going after everyone that had been marked. Although Patty, because of his obsession with alcohol,
constant state of drunkenness,
he was able to, withstand it because they didn't want anything to do with his alcohol. It was poison. I mean, because he was drunk all the time, it was poison. And it just made me laugh, all the silly things that happened. Like, he came home and the whole wall of his bathroom is gone. And he's like, how am I supposed to wash up? It's like, oh, you should maybe thought of that before you bring something into your house that you don't know what it is.
It's just magnificent, though, isn't it? The idea that he would bring it home, and it is definitely a monster. It's a sea creature. Bringing it home and putting it in your bath is not the best choice.
Not at all. And so he had this constant humor and silliness, And I guess being the
Mhm.
town drunk does have its advantages when you have these alien grabbers that are terrorizing the town. So,
Mhm.
yeah,
It comes in
Yeah.
handy.
I mean, he wants a finder's fee for finding it, and then he wants to name it. In fact, he did name it, which I found
Mhm.
really funny. So,
Absolutely. That's scientific method, isn't it? You
Yeah.
find it, you
Yeah.
name it, right?
and then I think the other thing that I really liked is when they were talking about getting intoxicated. Someone or he mentions it takes years to get to his level of intoxication. And I'm thinking that is true.
He's a trained master of the art, really.
He is. He is. And he
Absolutely.
said that like
Yeah.
food and exercise were keeping him like in good shape. And then he talks about having a banana and a bag of chips yesterday. It's like, really?
Yeah.
That's keeping you in shape. Okay. That's a new
Alright.
diet, I
That's
guess.
an
A
Irish
new
diet.
trend.
Yeah.
I don't need any other
That's
groceries.
the Irish diet.
So that
Yeah, I have had friends who've moved over to Ireland from foreign countries, and after a few times out in a pub with my friends and people that I hang around with, they realize that they think coming over to Ireland that it's Irish people like to talk. That's what we like to do. People get together, tell stories, and chat and have fun. And after a couple of times out with my friends, they tend to realize that we just like to talk so we can drink more. That's basically basically the facility to allow us to drink more. It's the lubricant that allows us to drink more as well. So to talk more as well. So we keep going till well late in the night. So as I say, lots and lots of Paddy Barretts in Irish pubs.
so Patty is my number 3.
I need to make that plan. I need to come over there and hang out with you once we can.
Yeah.
You are absolutely welcome. Yeah,
Be
absolutely.
great. Yeah, Patty, great. I have a couple notes on him. He's not one of my top 3, but since you brought him up, we're talking about him. Go through those. He was such a hilarious character, and I love that he sees his friend get sprayed in the face with this goo, whatever. So then after he takes it home, anytime he interacts with the grabber, he's got this full on welding mask on, and he's like, "I'm not going there." We're not.
Oh, that was just so endearing. He's such a character.
It's great. And then the one in the lab, in Dr. Smith's lab, when it's kind of, when they're starting to mess with it or whatever, he's like, "And I'm out." Like, he's got the smartest plan of all. That's funny because Smith grabs a chair, which is hilarious. I was like, I guess it's better than O'Shea's rolled up magazine, but but I was like, Patty had the best idea of all. He was just like, "I'll be back when you're done with this." Like,
Yes.
See you later.
Yeah.
I'm gone.
He knows what to do. I mean, he
Yeah.
does. Yeah. Despite the years of intoxication, he does still have some brain cells left.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I do also love about him, and not to spoil the ending or anything, but after everything they've gone through, the bartender asks him, does he want to come in for a pint? And still says, of course, yeah, no problem at all. I thought you were out of booze. Oh no, I just needed to change the kegs.
Yeah.
In you come. Fantastic.
Yeah.
So my official number 3, though, man, I want to use the accent, but then with Derek here, maybe I shouldn't. I was like,
if you want me to say a line,
maybe
for you,
that. No,
do that.
I can try my best. But yeah, it's Garda, Lisa Nolan. I loved the character of Lisa Nolan. I loved her. My first note, I was like, you know what? We're gonna start superficial and then move from there. But my first note on her, I was like, Garda, Lisa Nolan. I was like, she is cute. I'm just gonna say it. It's like, no wonder O'Shea has been crushing on her this whole movie. Maybe he's a little creepy about it throughout a lot of it.
Yeah.
He still manages to wear her down. No, but but I was like, but I get it. I totally get it. She's a very attractive woman. But I liked kind of her arc, if you call it an arc or whatever, through the movie. It kind of is. But she starts as kind of not really a hard ass, but she's very O'Shea gives her crap about being married to her job and putting that kind of first, and she's just very not uptight but focused, very focused.
Exactly.
And it's cool to then see her the first time she gets drunk, and because she goes from testing him, being oh, you're drunk again and blah blah blah, you're just drinking all the time. And I love when she's say the alphabet backwards. I was like, I can't do that shit. I'm stone cold sober. So I don't know how she's explaining. I'm the way with him. Z, etc. Yeah, all right. That's
fantastic.
works for me.
line
It's
as
about
well.
the best I can do.
I love it.
But then I love
Yeah.
how she leaves him in the drunk tank overnight. Wakes him up there. He's
Yes.
like, "You arrested
Mhm.
me?" I was like, "No, you just passed out before I could find out where you lived." So
which is really polite. Like,
Yeah.
she tried. She wasn't going to drag him into her hotel room because she definitely doesn't
No.
know the guy. So send him off to the drunk tank. She knows he's safe. I mentioned earlier on that the tagline for the movie does feel a little bit like the idea from Shaun of the Dead. Do you guys get any kind of feeling about Hot Fuzz, one of the follow-up movies from Peg and Frost? This idea of townie police officer moving to very small town and meeting the local drunk police officer and ending off in the drunk tank after meeting them the first night as well. I thought there was a couple of little things that I was like, oh, they've taken a little bit from Peg and Frost.
Yeah.
I like that.
I think I'm okay with it, though. I think I'm okay with them doing
absolutely.
Hey, Cornetto trilogy references are always great for me.
Yes, absolutely.
Why not?
I love
Absolutely.
They were all referencing other things before as well. So, steal if you want to steal,
it. Yeah,
steal
exactly.
from the best.
Oh,
Edgar Wright's
yeah.
a good one to take from.
Yes.
Yeah, I have here. So Lisa is Irish, but she's never been drunk. I don't buy it. And I was like, oh, sorry, Derek. I don't know if that's an offensive stereotype or not, but I don't buy it.
There was definitely a movement, and there definitely still is now. There's definitely a movement of people separating away from that stereotype in Ireland. So, especially when you meet a guard who works in the big city of Dublin, there's that feeling that they're completely separated from the history of Ireland. They're not like the rest of the Irish people. I'm from Dublin myself, so I can say that we're called West Brits. Would be the derogatory term for Dublin people to make us, because we seem much more like another country than like
Interesting.
Irish people, is the way that it's seen. So it's one of the reasons why I kind of picked this movie. One of the reasons I'm really interested to hear you guys' thoughts on the movie is because there are these little elements of it, and it does feel very Irish. It's very 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 like something that everybody talks about, the kind of conversations that go on. So I'm always intrigued to hear what other people think about a very Irish film. So I'm intrigued whether you were able to pick that up. Like, yeah, okay, big city cop in small town, but as I say, when you're talking about big city being a city of 3.5 million people and small town being a town of 60 people who can fit in the upstairs room of a house.
Well, remember, a lot of them had gone. They'd left the area because, they left a lot of them had left to go to some concert or
other way round, actually. That was my second point. Is about the premise. If I can I move on to that?
Yeah,
is that
that's
okay?
totally good.
You got a little more on Lisa Nolan, Pake. We'll leave it there, but I'll talk about
All
it.
right. So, yeah, I don't have a whole lot more. No, I was going to ask you, since just with the Irish, because it's interesting. I'm glad to have you just to kind of get some of the insight on stuff that's really interesting. Of course, I'm assuming this backdrop here of Aran Island is a fictional location, or is
it kind of is. There are a group of islands called the Aran Islands, a group of 3 islands, Inishmore, Inishman, and Inishbeog, which are 3 islands off the west coast of Ireland. And weirdly, they changed the sign of one of those into Aran Islands. Aran is a shortened name for Ireland, actually. So it is fictionalized, and certainly, while Ireland is beautiful, it doesn't have all of that beauty in one tiny location where only 40 people lived. That would the fight for housing would be enough to cover all that up with houses. So there's no way we would have that much beauty in a tiny area. So.
You mentioned Inishman, and I just ran a quick tangent. As I know of that because I happened to be in New York City and got lucky to see a Broadway play that was a limited run that Daniel Radcliffe was doing, called The Cripple of Inishman, and it was all very heavy, like Irish accents, and very, and it was really fun. Ended up hitting up an Irish pub after seeing it because I was just in that mode.
Sure, why not? Why not? Yeah, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. No, they're very well known islands. They'd be, I think it's something like they're the most visited islands in anywhere in the British Isles. So they are very well known. Very difficult to get to and back. Like, you can book tours to get out and back, but people have to make a plan to get their post delivered to them. And when they want to go and vote, they have to come to the mainland and that kind of stuff. So it is, they are very, very small, but they're fictionalized here in the movie, but they do exist.
But the only other really note I had on her, I mean, she has some fun moments in the pub with kind of the big showdown, but that's kind of moving on to my next point. So just to wrap it up is like, I say, it's extremely obvious that she ends up kind of romantically with O'Shea by the end of the movie. But I was like, hey, what are you going to do? Like, you gotta, I mean, is it as fun if you just end the movie with him being like, still not that interested in you though. And everything I said when I was drunk was kind of, would have been funnier. I don't know.
I do think that would have been funnier. I actually love the reveal, when she's told about him being separated from his wife and thinks that the wife is dead and apologizes to him and makes sure he's okay and is really comforting him. And he's like, no, we just separated. She lives over there. We broke up, It's funny, but it is a bit of a stereotype for the two of them to end off together. But I think it's one of those, look what they went through together over that time, and they got to understand each other more than they ever would have otherwise. They're two people that never should have liked each other even. So
and sometimes people bond through shared experiences, and so they definitely had a shared experience.
They certainly did. They certainly did. Yeah, I love Lisa Nolan. It's a great choice, Pake, for your first point. She is known over here probably for a TV show called Love Hate, which is a really good Irish TV show. If you get the opportunity to watch it, check it out. She did the first 2 seasons of that show, and she's very good in it. But other than that, there's not a huge amount more that she's been involved in. Daphne, you mentioned the other show that she's known for, Humans, as well. But I do love her. Like, she's a really strongly written character in this movie. She's a really good presence every time she's on screen. So
awesome.
really
Love Hate is a great show. I've seen the first couple seasons of it, so it's really good.
Yeah. I think you'd love it.
It does have Robert Sheehan in it.
From Umbrella Academy. He's a very central character in it, but it's not very funny. It's very violent.
I'm okay with that too. Yeah. So you had some stuff you set up a little bit for us, Derek, on your number 2, or your second point. So why don't you go ahead and dive into that?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about the premise of the movie a little bit. Just the concept of it does feel like something that every Irish film student must have come up with when they were drinking in the pub, trying to think of their idea for their end of year movie. To make the idea of, how do we make a movie where we can all just get drunk, and the main protagonist has to get drunk, and that's a way to get rid of the evil alien. Right, grand, let's do it this way. But part of that is looking back at big monster movies in the past. You guys covered a bunch of these, but looking back at things like Tremors, looking back at Jaws is a really good example of what they looked at clearly and then decided to flip it a bit. So, Daphne, you mentioned that some of the islanders have left. It's not really the islanders. I think the only person that goes on holiday is the chief of police, effectively, the head of the Gardaí. That's on the island. That's why Lisa's there. Everybody else is kind of clearing out because the tourists are coming in next week, which is the premise of Jaws. That the tourists are coming in next week. Tourist season's about to happen.
Sense.
What actually happens in this movie is that all of this takes place with just the locals there waiting for the arrival of all the tourists.
Okay, that makes so much more sense.
But isn't it an interesting flip? Like, normally you'd be making this massive budget movie and you'd be bringing in all the victims, and all the victims would be tourists coming in from outside. What they've done here is crunched it down, going, we don't really have the budget for hundreds of people on board here, so we'll have 40 people here, all locals, all know the local area, and how can we tell that story and kill off some of the actual locals that live here to make it more meaningful? But I'm sure it's to do with budget to do that, but I think it's a great choice.
And the connection to Jaws too, did you know, I happened to see this little bit of trivia when I was doing some, dive on this, is that Aran Island sign has the same like a smiling sun or whatever. It's the same visual as the sign for Jaws. That what is the name of that?
Amity Island.
Yeah.
Yes,
it is.
Yeah. That's really cool, isn't it? And I'm sure that's all done on purpose as well.
I actually uncovered a little bit of trivia too, mostly about where the idea came from to do this movie. Yeah, Kevin Lehane, he wrote the script. And when he was backpacking across the world, he was getting bit by mosquitoes and he hated it, which who doesn't? And he heard this urban legend that you could eat Marmite and it would prevent mosquito bites. So he wondered if mosquitoes got hung over from drunk people's blood. So he went, when he got home, he said he wrote the script for Grabbers based on the premise, get drunk to survive.
I think that's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. I know that is a Marmite fan will choose any opportunity to tell you that Marmite will save you from whatever it was. It's like you can keep tigers away from you if you eat Marmite.
Oh my gosh!
And also being an Irish person traveling to foreign countries where mosquitoes are, you're always told the reason they bite you more is because they like Irish blood. It's sweeter than other countries' blood. That's the reason why you get bitten more.
There's always those things.
So I'm sure that's part of it as well. But I did love that, and again, as I say, the premise is you have to get drunk to survive is the concept. One of the things I was wondering about when I got to the end of the movie, I was wondering whether it is actually poaching is the thing that actually would keep them safe. It doesn't seem like everybody's that safe, even though they're all drunk. They're all stuck indoors and they're not being attacked. But it feels like poaching, the as you mentioned, the homebrew kind of potato vodka that they're making. It seems like that's actually the thing that's used to kill the grabbers. So I wonder if they actually didn't need to go and get pissed and drink every bit of alcohol in the whole island. They actually could have used poaching, thrown it at these grabbers.
Well, I wondered that
such
too.
A waste of good poaching.
It would. Yeah. We've been brewing this for centuries. This is not going to kill the grabber.
So I think the regular alcohol levels definitely affected their interactions with the smaller, like the hatchlings, the baby grabbers.
Oh goodness!
But the big daddy grabber,
Big Daddy.
that wasn't enough for him. I think that stuff was the only thing that would stop him.
I love that you just called him Big Daddy.
Yeah, Big Daddy G.
I love it.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
But that was it. That was my second point, just on the concept and the premise behind it. Daphne, what's your
my next one is actually the dynamic between Lisa and Kieran, because she comes in as this by the book Dublin Garda. She's spending her vacation time volunteering to come out for temporary duties on the island for 2 weeks, which who does that? I'm just surprised.
I totally married to that, right?
But she's also like a city girl because she's asking what kind of milk is he going to put in there. And then she has a fit when he introduces her and doesn't say Garda Nolan. And she's definitely not used to the environment because when she gets out of the car, she puts her feet in the mud and she just kind of looks down. I'm like, yeah, you're in the country now. It's not all cement sidewalks. It's mud. So I just found it interesting, the two of them, because he's more of this alcoholic who I don't know how he functions on a daily basis. He just kind of goes from one thing to the next and he's able to get things done, but I don't really know how. And obviously the kind of chief guy doesn't think he can handle it by himself because he requests
absolutely
to get Lisa to come. So, I mean, he's kind of a strange one, but he also is like, gets drunk and goes and hits on her, ends up being put in the tank for the night because of it. But he's so jealous when she starts connecting with the doctor. Every little thing.
Absolutely.
Like, you can see his face, or he'll make a smart-ass comment. He hates it. Like, it needles him. And she'll say things because she knows it's going to needle him. It's like, yeah, okay, there's something here, even if she doesn't want to admit it yet. And I feel like it took her getting drunk to put her guard completely down, so she starts, like, telling him things. But yet, instead of taking advantage of that situation, he kind of is like, no, he kind of pushes back at her and is like, doesn't want to do anything, because I feel like she was ready to make out with him in the car. And he's kind of like putting the brakes on. So even though he's a little bit creepy at times, I feel like he redeems himself a little bit in those moments because he's sober and he doesn't want to. It seems like he doesn't want to take advantage of her.
I appreciated that a lot because I was kind of watching that scene a little scared. Like, I was like, I know this was back in 2012 and things are like, I was like, but consent still matters here, guy.
Yes.
Come on.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah, he's a good guy. It's kind of like, he gets a bit drunk and gets the Dutch courage, as we call it, to go and chat her up. But he would still accept no for an answer. He'd still accept that she wasn't interested in him. That is definitely one of my favorite quotes as well, Daphne. I know we normally do quotes. You normally do quotes a little bit later on, but I absolutely love Kieran turning her down, going, as flattering as it is to hear beautiful drunk slurring your feelings at me, now is not the time.
Exactly.
Because they're about to be attacked by the grabbers. So really did like that relationship. But you're right, he's such a what's the phrase? A functioning alcoholic. So because he's just topping it up all the time is what it feels like. It feels like he's also at the bar every single night. He takes a couple of drinks in the morning before going to pick her up in the car. It's not like he's just recovering from the night before. He's getting up in the morning, filling himself full of drink, and then going to pick her up. And when she questions why he's doing it, he's like, nothing is going on here, so there's no reason to be sober, basically.
Because he even tells her later, what was it he said? She didn't have to be worried. When he goes upstairs to hit on her, you don't have to be worried. Nothing's going on here. No one's going to check up on us. We can do whatever. Basically, we can do whatever we want.
Exactly.
And later on, he actually shares that he only gets super drunk on high days and holidays. It's like, okay, which is every day. I think he's turned, the whole year has been turned into, 365 days of holiday drinking.
Absolutely. I do love their relationship. I think they're really well cast, and I think the two of them work very well together, even though, you wouldn't necessarily put them together, but that's part of it, I suppose, with Lisa Nolan being in the position that she's in. She's probably been taught to steer very clear of that type of guard, especially someone that works in the same organization as you. If they're that type of person, steer clear of them. And just in general, steer clear of the drunken dude who spends all of his time on the bottle. It's probably
pretty good
idea,
advice.
so.
Yeah, for the most part.
Yeah, I think so. And she's such a rule follower. Like, she seems like she strictly follows the rules. So it wouldn't surprise me if she, that was in the back of her head, especially from the start. No, I'm not going to get involved with this guy. He's irresponsible, drunk all the time, has no clue what he's doing. He's really not the right person for me to be attaching myself to.
Exactly.
So, Pake, what was your second point?
My number 2 is kind of like what Derek was talking about as the premise, but I have a little more specific in diving into it. I call it the party at the pub. Because as we kind of get set up with the premise that, blood tainted by alcohol is poisonous to the grabbers. So I was like, for once, O'Shea actually has the absolute best excuse to get plastered. So that's good for him. But then he doesn't take it up. He actually decides to be the one who's sober.
Responsible.
Yeah. Which was an interesting that he went that route, but it does show that like somewhere deep within him is the ability to be a really good Garda and really good, he does do his job correctly when he's supposed to, at least sometimes.
When he's supposed to. Exactly.
But I was just like, these scenes really made the movie for me, and I'm glad that that this movie was picked for me, because it's very, very funny in a lot of these scenes. I love whenever they're planning like what's going on, but they don't want to, raise suspicion or have people scared, and then it's Brian and Una, right? Una walks in and is like, it looks like you're plotting something. It's like, oh no, it's more like planning. And she just says, oh, okay, and walks out. And I love that Brian be like, great, her birthday's next week. And now she thinks this is something for her.
Yes. Yep.
They are fantastic. I love those two characters. That was actually one of my notes later on. But I love Una and Brian. I think they're fantastic as background characters in the movie.
So much fun. But I was like, music, company, fun. When they go into the church and trying to get everybody to come, it's like, there's gonna be music and the company of the crack. It's all, and he's like, okay. But then what sells him is like, also free bar for the whole night. And that's the ticket. That's what's going to get everybody to show up.
Even gets the priest off the altar to run into the bar as well. Yeah. Everybody goes for a free
and
bar.
Everybody's just partying it up in there. And like, I'm watching this scene like with like COVID mind being like, oh God, what are you guys doing? Everybody's way too close. There's no, but
there's no masking.
But it also it was like a fondness to that, because I was like, man, these scenes are really making me miss the giant gatherings at my local brewery that I used to go to all the time. And it's like, I've been in those situations. Maybe not people standing up on tables and bars and stuff, but
No.
I've been in, like, especially when it comes St. Patrick's Day, because I feel like Americans enjoy St. Patrick's Day almost more than Irish people do sometimes. It's our it's like we're like, hey, we can drink all the time and it's okay, even though we do it too all the time. But I'm sure it's probably the same there. I don't know.
Yeah. So weirdly, you're absolutely right. Yeah, St. Patrick's Day. Actually, the night before St. Patrick's Day is probably the bigger night out because everybody has St. Patrick's Day off. So everybody goes drinking on the 16th.
And you use St. Patrick's Day to recover.
Usually. Exactly. That's when you go and watch the parade on television and recover from your hangover. Absolutely. Yeah, those scenes are fantastic. I love, because it's a small community as well. You know, it's not just that it's a party get together. It does feel like a lock-in in a pub in Ireland, without a doubt. But you've got some of the older members of the community who are kind of getting to about 8 o'clock at night going, I've had my fill. I normally have a glass of sherry and that's kind of all I would drink. And now they're being plied full of pints by the bartender who's going, no, sit down, Mary, have another shot. I love the interactions between everybody there trying to work out why they're stuck in here and why they're not being allowed to leave as well.
I love that it showed this big sense of community with that, small group of people. And I also love that they had just a few of them knew what was really going on. So they were working together to keep everyone inside, even though it didn't always work.
Yeah. No, not always. But yeah, and that's the other part of this is, like, the party scenes with all the people that live there is fun. But I think also the flip side of that is our small group of heroes, I guess you could call them, that seeing them also being just completely, like, knackered, but then, like, at the same time, like, trying to, like, fill in, do the plan and keep everything, do the things that they're supposed to do. And it led to some really great comedy. Like, I love, like, they're putting their weapons together. It's like, what great weapons. I was like, Lisa's got a pan. Dr. Gleason has a nail gun and a board with a nail in it. Patty has his pelletless pellet gun. Smith has the flare gun, and then Brian had a super soaker flamethrower, which that plan didn't really work because as soon as he managed to get it lit and ran outside, the rain put it out immediately. Yep. He was just waving this plastic toy at a giant monster like it's going to do something.
Absolutely. I was trying to work out how that would work anyway. As a plastic toy, being a flamethrower is probably not the greatest use of it, right? Surely it would just melt in your hands, right?
Yeah.
They were very drunk, so I think they're working the best they can. And that's what I love is them then trying to be, when the grabber, like, follows them back to the kitchen area, and then they're all trying to be these, like, action hero badasses doing survival stuff. And I thought it's hilarious. Like, Lisa's trying to push the table to use as a barricade, but she's also trying to climb on top of it at the same time. And O'Shea's having, like, the worst time. He's like, don't climb on, you just push it. Why are you climbing on it? Like, he's very, and those are great moments. Smith, because he's been just, like, pounding that again, was it Puchin?
Puchin, yep.
He's been pounding that, so he is, like, hallucinating almost. Where he's like, he can't get off the floor, and he's going, "Your floor is broken. Your floor." And having the, like, hardest, and he finally gets it lit, and Brian runs off, and just the most deadpan, like, "No, don't be a hero." I thought it was hilarious, and then he finally does make it outside himself, and that's his. They're like, "You need to come back inside," and he's like, "No, I need photographs for National Geographic and Facebook." Like, he's, and then so it was sad then for him because, whatever was, that homebrew there, it was, it was enough that the giant grabber wasn't interested in eating him, but it didn't stop him from punting him into next week still. So that was unfortunate.
Absolutely. That was a bit of a shock, wasn't it? I thought it was. Just to see the body just fly across the bed.
Yeah, he's like, well, there he goes.
I thought he would make it. Like, he was not on my list of, he could die. I didn't think that any of them would die, I guess. I felt like we were going in a direction where they'd already killed off a bunch of people, so I thought, our little band of merry misfit action heroes are going to make it through this okay. And then it's like, nope. They're not.
Not all of them.
Not all of them.
Yep.
Nope.
I did consider for a second maybe that I should be, like, several sheets to the wind myself while covering this movie, just because it would. But then I was like, that might not actually work very well for recording.
It could
And then
be.
the thing happened.
Yeah. That would leave me with some really interesting editing work, and I'm not sure I can make it work.
Probably would.
Maybe I could.
Yeah.
But it's St. Patrick's Day. Yeah, I could have a drink.
But yeah, there's a lot of just fun stuff with the bar. You know, before it goes up in flames, we have Lisa slinging that one little baby grabber into the jukebox. And
Oh my goodness.
setting up that whole
grabbers.
Bapalina. It was great.
Fantastic scene, because you know it's on movies to hit their premise, to nail the premise properly, and the movie has set this up. You know, I think the poster for this, the best poster I've seen for it anyway, is a pint of beer inside a glass cabinet that says "break in case of grabbers."
Oh,
so it's,
I'm gonna look for that.
Keep yourself
poster.
safe with having a beer. So it's a good little poster. But if you don't nail that, if you don't nail the idea of what the whole community has to do to get drunk to keep away the grabbers, if you don't nail it, then you've kind of ruined your film.
Yeah.
So to have three or four of your main protagonists, not having them all drunk. Trying to do the things that action heroes would do in any other movie.
Yeah.
If you don't nail that, you've ruined your film. So I think they did a really good job. You're absolutely right. Really good
so
job
much
in there.
fun. So yes, that was my number 2.
Awesome.
So,
Excellent.
Derek, what do you got as your top and final point here?
Now upon me to find a final point. I think I'm just going to take the showdown at the end, the final showdown back at the quarry where they get the big bad grabber out to the quarry, because there are inspirations here, as you can very clearly tell by the one quote that I won't use from the movie. That is a reference to Alien.
I thought about putting that in my quotes, and I was
Irish.
like, I don't know about that.
I think you'll still get thrown off iTunes for using that particular C word on there. But I love that this is the final scene. The two main characters having both Kieran and Lisa being the ones to take out your main grabber. And there's some moments in there that you think that one of them's going to go. You think that I think that neither of them are safe in those final scenes. You kind of think that Lisa will come out triumphant because she's the big bad cop coming from Dublin. I wonder if that's once again that kind of idea that, you know, you're coming from watching Aliens, they're making reference to Aliens, and you're kind of going, well, Sigourney Weaver was the only one that survived really in those movies. So maybe they're going to kill Garda O'Shea here, you know. But I think that finale worked really well, taking it out of that situation, having them down in the quarry, having that final battle. And as I said earlier on, I kind of spoiled it, but was it the poutine that Kieran O'Shea threw into the mouth of the grabber that killed him, rather than everybody else being drunk, poisoning the blood? It feels like the poutine was that direct hit, that proper nuclear weapon that was needed to take out the grabbers.
I feel like it was the Molotov cocktail that was required.
Yeah, basically.
To do it.
Yeah, because I think it probably finished him off on its own, but it's a good thing they just went ahead and exploded him for good measure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think this is one of those things where we now all need to keep a bottle of poutine in our homes, just in case of emergencies.
Yeah, of course.
And if any authorities have anything to say, you're like, this is survival, man. This is
absolutely just in case the grabbers come up.
Prepared for grabber attack at any time.
I love it, but it all ends with Lisa throwing away Garda Nolan's hip flask. So it looks like he's no longer dependent on the booze.
Yeah.
Apparently. Even though he makes the joke of I might need that in the future. But no, he does get that thrown away.
Yeah, that was a funny moment. He threw it, and then it was like, oh, I'm gonna need that. It was a mistake. And then they kind of laughs it off. It's like, I'm just kidding. But like, for a second, I thought he was gonna go back for it. I wouldn't blame him. I'm like, it's a nice flask.
Exactly. It's a good hip flask.
I feel like he has a new drug that he's into now, and that's all Lisa all the time.
Oh, those Dublin ladies.
Yep. I think that he's totally infatuated with her, so I don't think he's going to need that.
Excellent.
Yes.
That was it. That's my final point. The final showdown. Daphne.
All right. So my number 1 is not a surprise. It often happens on this podcast when we do the top 3. My number 1 is the grabbers themselves. I thought the concept was really clever to utilize, alcohol as the repellent. The baby grabbers I didn't know whether to be scared of them or just laugh, because they were just kind of, they were cute and funny. Like, if you
It reminded me of like a litter of kittens, like playing with each other while they were in the bar.
Yes, me too. I just couldn't get, I wasn't afraid of them. I just thought they were cute. And maybe that makes me strange because they were kind of creepy looking, but it's kind of like, oh, but they're cute little blood-sucking predators. They're just so cute. They don't know what they're doing. I thought...
Maybe that's part of the trick, though, right? Maybe that's like Mogwai and who develop into gremlins, you know? Take one home, have your entire family slaughtered.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought the baby grabbers were just awesome. I thought the way that they utilized I think it was Cooney, who was basically a puppet dancing outside. I'm like, what is going on here? And then he's just like... I was
trying to figure out the reasoning for that, because at first I was like, are they super smart and tactical and he's like bait? Or like later in the movie it comes up, though, that it was also because he said he was slamming a sheep against the door of the pub at one point. And it was like, oh, it's like when a cat drops off like a dead mouse on your doorstep. Like it was almost like a mate, not like a mating, but like a courting ritual because, you know, the female had left its mark on different people. They was like something like that too.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I loved that. I loved that it would always eat the whole body, but not the head. I thought that was strange, but interesting. I mean, it always spit the head out. It's like, okay, all right, you eat the rest of it. Sure. I loved the little showcase of Night of the Living Dead on the TV. I thought that was very cool.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Coming to get you, Barbara. It's an essential.
Love George Romero, so it was great to see that in there. I loved that. I think his name was Tig. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right.
Yep.
Okay.
You're pronouncing that 100%
awesome.
Right. Well done.
I love that his wife asked him who's at the door, and he says, it's that bloody Declan Cooney, and he's pissed as a fart. That just made me laugh. I do think that the grabber was kind of still using Cooney like bait, too. Like, I think it wanted to eat, and it wanted to mate. Those are two things. And we know that it did mate, given all the eggs we saw everywhere in different places. I thought it was neat, too, that they killed all the whales at sea, and then they all just washed up after. I thought that was kind of neat. And it basically is a food source for the babies. So it's kind of like, okay.
Yeah.
And the rolling, the way that they rolled things, like they weren't walking on 2 legs. They weren't walking on 8 legs. They just were rolling. Funny enough, it reminded me of Fizzgig from the Dark Crystal. Like the rolling, because Fizzgig was a character in the Dark Crystal and just kept rolling. It didn't have tentacles, but the rolling piece of it. I didn't think about that. I thought the grabbers were great.
I loved the design of the big grabbers. I thought they were very, very cool. Yeah, and I think the rolling is really scary as well.
It's different.
The kind of the twist in it where they're saying that, you know, they can only move around when it's wet. They move around in the water, and then it's Ireland, so it rains about 85% of the time here. So, well, when it's raining, everywhere is wet, so they can move wherever they want to move. It's basically the conceit, you know. You asked earlier on why Ireland is so green. It's because it rains 85% of the time. So, so that's kind of the other little insight to why the grabbers would be going for this island. But I love the design. I thought it was really good, and it feels like maybe that's where all the budget went to in the movie, is to design these cool looking creatures. You know, again, we're talking almost 10 years ago now that this was made. So I think they still stand.
I didn't think
or roll around.
Yeah,
maybe not.
I didn't think the CGI was bad. Like for it being 8 years old. Yeah. We've talked in the past about CGI and how it's dated, but I feel like they did a really good job with this one. Like, I didn't look at it and say, oh, this is 10-year-old CGI. I'm like, oh, this is a really creepy creature that we're facing. Exactly. So, yeah, I thought it was definitely cool. I like their coloring, too. Like, they just seem to be like this gray-blue mix of colors, and I really liked it. There are some videos online that you can find where you can see them actually layering the CGI for each of the different pieces.
Oh, cool.
I thought it was really cool. Yeah.
Excellent. I'll have to check that out.
I
Send me a
will.
link
I
after this,
definitely will. It's a lot of fun. When I was doing some digging for our production notes, I came across a lot of interesting videos and pictures. So it was cool.
Excellent.
So, Pake, what about you?
Oh, man. Well, my number one was yours also. So we've pretty much covered all of it, was the grabbers. So I'm trying to see whatever notes I had. Yeah, you mentioned the heads. I think is kind of funny. Because I say, yeah, the grabber does not like heads or wailing sirens, apparently.
Yeah, no.
Very angry about both of those. Yeah, he's just like, he doesn't want the head for some reason.
No.
But yeah,
not.
When they go to the caves and like find the eggs and stuff sitting there, and they go, oh, the grabber can't escape from the cave. But then it does, but I'm assuming that's because it like filled up with water and then it was
able to roll out,
able to swim out or something, kind of like an octopus or something at that point.
Yeah.
And it's also a great shock whenever you're told a monster can't get out of that area, and then it does. That's a nice little surprise.
Absolutely.
I think the only other note that I had was just kind of the focus on the eggs, because I was just like, they keep popping up everywhere, and I was just like, oh, more eggs. Great, more eggs. This could be a real problem. And then even at the end, when everything is kind of over said and done, I guess they didn't really go back to like all the baby grabbers that were in the pub, what they did with them, but
yeah.
I assume they could be dispatched pretty easily.
There's going to be more.
But then they show right there at the end, I was like, and more eggs. Dun, dun, dun. To the sequel that probably will never be.
I know. Oh, goodness.
Look, it was only $5 million to make the first one. Surely we can raise enough funds to make the sequel.
Yeah. Who can we get on that?
You guys on Patreon yet?
They've done some interesting things with GoFundMe for movies before. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they made a movie, which one was it? Veronica Mars was a completely funded on Kickstarter movie. And so,
that's right,
yeah, and I think because they funded on Kickstarter, the creators, producers were really focused on trying to give the fans what they wanted because the fans paid for it. So I thought that was kind of unique. So I feel like we need to pull together a bunch of fans of Grabbers, and if that means we have to encourage more people to watch it, then I think we can do that.
Yeah. Sometimes those things
So what do
turn
we
out
want
great, or you can be like Thanks Killing, since we mentioned that earlier, and you can completely fan fund a sequel to that. And I watched that. We will not be covering it for Thanksgiving this year.
Thank you, Pake. I'm so relieved to hear that officially.
Oh, no. What are you going to do Thanksgiving this year?
I don't know, but it won't be that.
Not Thanksgiving 3.
I love it.
Which, yes, that's what it was. They skipped 2, and the immediate sequel was 3.
Yeah.
Sure, why not? Why not?
Because the whole premise of the third one is the fact that the second one was made, but it was so bad that they had to destroy every copy in the world except for one. And so that one copy that's left becomes the premise for the third movie.
Yeah. Makes perfect sense, right?
Oh, yeah.
I love it. Not too bad. You're making me want to watch it now.
No. You haven't even seen the first one. No.
Well, I've heard a very good podcast talk about it.
I saw it. I can't erase it from my memory, but,
Well, perfect. Well, does anybody else have any extra notes?
I have one or two, but they are just things that didn't fit into my points. I was a little bit disappointed with Russell Tovey in this movie because he's one of my favorite actors. He plays the doctor in this movie. Doctor, no, it's not Dr. Jim. That's the other doctor, but he plays the main doctor, the other possible love interest for
Dr. Smith.
Yes, that's it. It feels like, and I don't know whether people outside of Ireland know this, there is a lot of tension between English people and Irish people that seems to be baked into a lot of movies and TV shows. The tension's gone decades ago, really, to be honest, but it always seems to be built in to TV shows, and it feels like somebody said that to Russell Tovey. You're the English guy on set. You have to pretend to be an upper class, pompous English guy, and he went way too far with it in this movie. This movie is reasonably serious. There's lots of comedy in it, don't get me wrong, but it played for pretty straight by everybody. And unfortunately, I think Russell Tovey just was pushed way too far with his performance. He feels like he's in one of his comedy movies. And I love him normally. He's been in Being Human for 3 seasons, a fantastic role in that. He was in Years and Years, which was a brilliant Russell T Davies TV show last year, and he was magnificent in that. It's probably one of the best performances I've seen. And he came from History Boys, where he was a great stage actor from that. And it feels like every time I see him on something, I want to watch his performance in it. And unfortunately, this just fell really flat for me in the film.
Yeah, I liked him in The Job Lot. It was one of his little comedies. Well, oh my God. It was really funny. And I had seen him in Being Human as well. And I guess he was in Little Dorrit, which is one that's on my list and I haven't seen it yet. So I don't know what I don't even know what it's about. I just know that I've heard of it and it's on my list of, I should check that out sometime. Speaking of actors that I know from other places, for me, it's really fun because I watch a lot of British and Irish and Australian and foreign shows in general because I'm always interested. And I love the dry sense of humor like that. I prefer to kind of silly comedy. And there were people in this movie that I was like, oh, it's Lawrence from Trivia. Because he played Brian, the pub owner, David Pierce. Yeah, he was on 2 seasons of a show called Trivia. And I love trivia. So I watched the show. I'm like, okay, I want to see this. Actually, when I was watching it, I was thinking, I don't want to be as intense as this guy when I go to trivia because I can get pretty intense.
Excellent.
So I recognize him right away. And then I think it's Brianna Gallagher. She was on Count Arthur Strong, which is another show that I really loved. It was a British show, comedy. Very good. So it was fun to be able to look at that and see people that I've seen in other things and be like, I didn't know, because the first time I watched it, I hadn't seen those shows. So it's kind of fun to connect like that. Right. And I do agree with you on Russell Tovey. Yeah. I've seen him in a bunch of things and he did. Yeah, he was pretty pompous, I think.
It just didn't seem to work in the role. And I think you mentioned earlier on, Pake, that, you were expecting that the two of them would kind of maybe end off together, and then he gets kicked out into the ocean. And I never expected the two of them to end off together. I expected him to come to a grisly end because he was kind of set up to be the one you didn't like. Basically, it's as if they shouldn't end off together.
And I didn't,
even though I did kind of like him. I kind of did like him.
I liked him.
He was like very clever but matter of fact at the same time. Yeah. I kind of enjoyed it.
I love it. You mentioned Brianna Gallagher as well. She's one of our favourite exports from Ireland. She was in a movie called The Commitments in the 90s, which is a movie that every Irish person will tell you to watch. It's a movie about soul music coming from Ireland, from in inner city Dublin, and she's so fantastic in that film as well. She plays the role really, really well. So great to see her in here. She also had a very small role in Star Wars: The Phantom Menace. She was the pilot that flew the first ship carrying Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan into the trade talks right at the start, and the ship blows up and she's killed. So she has about 2.5 minutes of screen time in a Star Wars movie. So there you go.
I like it.
That's it
Daphne,
for my notes.
Do you have anything else?
Only one thing.
All right.
When they were in Dr. Smith's lab beating up the grabber, it reminded me of when they beat up the fax machine in Office Space.
Oh yeah.
I love finding those little things that remind you of something else. Like you were mentioning earlier, Derek, about how some of the things at the start were similar to like Shaun of the Dead or Hot Fuzz. That as soon as I just wanted the music to start playing while they were beating, because it just reminded me of that fax machine.
Right in time.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Oh, that's a good pull.
Yeah,
I like that.
I really liked that. And that, I think that is the end. Yeah, that's the end of my notes.
Cool.
What about you, Pake?
I am done. We went through everything.
Oh my goodness.
We got all my notes in. Yeah.
All right, that's good.
See, simple, straightforward premise and a fun little movie.
Yes. I have a couple of things in production notes because we talked about some of these throughout the movie. So I'm just going to bring up the ones that we didn't talk about. So the visual effects were provided by a company called Invisible. And the owner, Patty Eason, credited the descriptive script with aiding them in creating the creatures. Director Jon Wright had strong design thoughts regarding the radial symmetry and that the creatures have no up or down, they just roll. And I think that's, creepy. It adds to the creep factor for sure.
It feels like he's probably had a nightmare about these things.
Yeah.
Maybe.
It's funny, the other thing it reminded me of was the Langoliers, because those seem to be rolling too. Those were rolling too. So I kept going back and forth between, is it Fizzgig or is it the Langoliers? Either way.
Well, Fizzgig's not as scary,
he's
right?
cute. He's adorable.
Yeah.
So Ruth Bradley, who played Lisa, had a unique way of discovering things she could use in her performance, because before the shooting for the film started, Jon Wright took her and Richard Coyle out for a night of drinks. He filmed them, and then they watched the footage. So she was able to see herself drunk and come up with a few things she could use.
I love it. Who wants to see that? Like, who really wants to see that? An actor will put themselves through a process, I guess. But I guess they probably got her quite drunk because she does a pretty good
Funny
job.
thing, they did the same thing for The Office. I'm a huge fan of the American version of The Office. Because I listen, there's the Office Ladies podcast where, Pam and Angela, Angela Kinsey and Jenna Fisher cover things. And that's the same in like one of the earlier seasons of The Office. There's a scene where Pam gets super drunk during the Dundies, and she has that whole, I feel God in this Chili's tonight kind of moment. And so she's super drunk. And they did the same thing as they went out and got Jenna Fisher really drunk and let her watch what was going on, so she could kind of feel like, okay, this is what I'm like when I'm drunk, and then put it into the character of Pam. Fantastic. So that made I guess, hey, method acting, but like beforehand, so that you can actually act when the time comes to act, but then you know exactly what you're like. So
exactly, you're acting like yourself, not like somebody else that's drunk. Kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it comes across as more genuine and less of a put on, and I think that's more effective anyway. True. And basically that's it, because we already talked about the Wilhelm scream. So nice. I think we've made it through, and now we're to what could be the best part of our episode, because it's about quotes, and there are so many. There are so many quotes.
There are a lot.
Oh, goodness. Ugh, I don't even... Where do we even start?
Where do you want to start? I'll give you my favorite to begin with. Is that okay?
Go for it.
I really love when Dr. Jim Gleason is diagnosing what could have killed the patient brought before him. Ciarán O'Shea says to him, "What killed him, Jim?" And Jim Gleason goes, "Well, the fact that he's just ahead. You bring me someone with a head cold or a headache or something, I could do something. But you bring me just ahead and you're taking the piss. Jesus, you could bury him in a shoebox."
Yep. Yes.
I love it.
Me too. I love that one.
If you have any more, Derek, you can go ahead and kind of just throw them all out one after the other.
Yeah,
sure, absolutely. I mentioned before I love Una Maher in the movie. I love when Lisa Nolan's talking to Una behind the bar, and Lisa says it's going to be nice out, and Una goes, "No, there's a storm coming." Lisa says to her, "Oh, really? The gulls flying low or something?" And Una goes, "No, sure, it was on the telly." on the weather report behind me. Fantastic.
Yeah, loved that. So many.
I mentioned my other one earlier on. As flattering as it is to hear a beautiful drunk slurring her feelings to me, now is not the time. Really like that.
Yeah, those are good ones. There's a lot of good lines in this one.
There you go. Yeah, those are my favorites. There you go.
Well, I have a couple hundred. No, just a few. So when Lisa has arrived, and then they're driving to check out the beach whales, and Ciarán says to her that she's not going to find any of the craziness from Dublin here. And Lisa responds with, "It's always the quiet places where mad shit happens. Just open the paper."
Oh, she's right.
And then once they get to where they're inspecting the whales, Dr. Smith is there. And Ciarán says, "So they're dead." And then Dr. Smith just looks around and he says, No, they're just sleeping. I mean, when they're obviously dead. And the way he said it was just hilarious.
Fantastic.
When they take Patty's science project to Dr. Smith, because that's what I called it through part of my notes, Lisa says, what's that thing? And then Dr. Smith says, I haven't a clue. I've never seen anything like it before. It's a completely foreign species. I can't even begin to originate or class it. And then very matter-of-factly and calmly, Patty says, a grabber. And he has to push through, but I think they finally accept the name, that it is a grabber. And then when they're walking to Black Rock Caves, and Patty just has this little monologue and says, you know what's to blame for all this? Global warming. You've got your icebergs melting and your thingamajigs flooding. The whole world is drowning and we don't have the gills for it. I mean, who knew he could be so philosophical, an understanding of the world? Who knew?
Telling you, walk into any pub, you'll find a Paddy at the corner being as philosophical as you like.
Good. I like that. And then the last one I have is Kieran is the one who basically discovers that it's the alcohol. Even though we've determined that it could have been maybe not the alcohol itself, but Patty's special brand of alcohol. He says, if we taint our blood with booze, we're poisonous to eat. And that just made me laugh. I mean, so much about this movie. Like I said, we could have done the whole discussion in quotes. Because that's how funny it is.
I think we could have.
There's a lot of good ones.
What do you have, Pake?
So I have a few. The only one that I have that wasn't Patty was on your list, which was Lisa's It's Always the Quiet Places. Like that. So I've got some Patty quotes for us.
Excellent. Always down for those.
While they're looking, again, when they're in Dr. Smith's lab looking at it, I love his question. He goes, do you think I could sell it on the eBay? Which is great. So I was like, should I try to not do the accent on these? Because Derek's going to be so offended.
Oh, do it, Pake. Do it. It's all right.
Do it, Pake.
I won't be able to do it justice.
I'll tell you if you've done it badly, and Daphne, I'll tell you.
Okay.
Actual Irishman in here with us. I can't do it justice. No. And then we have, again, Brian saying, could we just spray some whiskey into its mouth? And Patty, again, just, feck that. Waste of whiskey.
Love it.
Which I feel you on that.
Love it.
And then my favorite one is Patty and Dr. Smith, again, having a kind of back and forth where they're laying all their weapons out. And Patty says, well, I've got a Harley and a pellet gun. Oh. And Smith says, well, what are we going to do with a pellet gun? And I love how he just matter-of-factly, shoot pellets. But I don't have any pellets. He goes, oh, right. Well, you can just wiggle it at them then.
Oh, I love that.
So good.
I love that so much.
See, a country without armed police officers. This is how you have to handle an invasion of some creatures from outer space.
No, I thought about that while watching this. I was like, okay, they got a pellet gun and a flare gun and a super soaker, but nobody owns any actual firearms. I was like, oh wait, that's right. This is in America, where everybody and their mom and dog have a gun.
It's also a very small island as well. I'm sure if it had happened in Dublin, I'm sure there's a store of arms for police officers, but definitely not this island.
So that's what I had.
Great quotes.
Great
there.
quotes.
All right, that was great.
So
Makes me want to go watch this again.
Right. So that means now we get to try to decide our rankings for this movie.
Oh yeah.
Ooh.
It's the fun part.
What to do?
Where does it go? Where does it go in your list? Do you give it an extra point because it's St. Patrick's Day?
Maybe.
Maybe. I might have to do that. I think I will do that.
Does it need an extra point? So it's going to get 11 out of 10. Is that what you're saying?
Only one movie's ever received 11 out of 10, and that was Rima giving it to Jaws.
Yeah.
And that's not a surprise. And we totally approved it. It was approved by us.
All right, so who's going to go first on this?
Not Daphne. I feel like Pake needs to go first because this is what you said to me when we did King Kong. This was the first time that you saw it, so you should go first.
Yeah,
so, yep.
That's going to come back to haunt me. I know.
You set the precedent for this one.
Yeah. I did. And I feel like Derek does have to go last because his is the official answer right now.
Yeah.
Well, because I chose it. So you know what, like.
No, I really, really enjoyed this movie. I was so glad that this was picked for me. And I had a fun time with it. And then I added an extra little point because it's like, I was doing decimal points on my so I added a little extra because Derek said I should and what he says goes. But yeah, no, I really, really liked it. I had a lot of fun, a lot of good laughs, great creature stuff. The CGI and effects were actually really good even for the budget and stuff that it had. And so I'm rating it really high. This is one I will definitely return to.
Oh my goodness!
This is an 8.8 on my
scale.
Oh
my goodness!
Woohoo!
Yeah.
Excellent.
Oh my goodness! I'm blown away. Oh, wow!
That's fantastic. Yeah. Audience score of like a B-, right, or an A- probably. Yeah, that's pretty damn good.
Had fun with it.
I'll have to see if I can go find the film. Tell them. Somebody watched your movie and they really liked it.
You know what? Jon Wright has not done very many. He has not done very many films. But we could pull him in to do the sequel when we get that going on the Kickstarter. Or GoFundMe.
Grabbing again.
Yes! Right there. Grabbing again. Okay. Wow. So that was a lot higher than I thought you would go. So you actually were higher than me because I came in at about an 8.2.
Oh, wow.
I love this movie. I had it on our list even before Derek suggested it or picked it. It was on our list because it's one that I just can watch anytime. It can always be on in the background. I always know what's going on and it just makes me feel happy. And it's just so enjoyable. Despite it being, yes, the grabbers do kill some people, but it's a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah.
So I'm standing by the 8.2.
All right.
Excellent. I guess I gotta rate it now. I'd probably go in between the two of you and probably about an 8.5 on this movie. I really do like it, and I actually give it a little extra push because it's an Irish movie and they don't happen very often. Unfortunately, the year this came out, there's a movie called Shrooms that came out at exactly the same time. Got the same kind of budget put towards it by the Irish Film Board, and it also got all the promotion budget as well. So part of the reason why this didn't succeed in the cinema really is because it didn't get the same kind of promotion. But two great movies. Check out Shrooms if you haven't seen that as well. But this one I just think is a lot of fun. I love the premise of it. I love that it's doing something different. It doesn't feel like it's pandering to the age-old stereotypes of Irish people, even though they're going to defeat the monster by getting drunk. It still feels like they're having a lot of fun with that, and they're actually playing with a more new version of Ireland than the types of films that you see generally going back to the Irish Troubles or back to the 1800s or different times in our past. It felt very contemporary, and really, really enjoyed it. So I'm really glad that both of you guys really enjoyed it as well.
Yeah, definitely did. I feel like it could have gone really silly if they wanted to make it really silly, but they didn't. They made it fun without pushing it beyond that and making it kind of over the top and ridiculous. I mean, let's face it, it was monsters and getting drunk. However, it wasn't completely crazy. Like, it could have gone so much further. And I'm glad it didn't, because I think it was more subtle, it made me like it even more. Because it wasn't so in your face.
Yeah, excellent. I have to go and find the filmmakers now. I'm sure if I wasn't locked out, I'd be able to find them somewhere.
They're hanging around somewhere.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Well, this usually kind of be a time when we kind of move on to feedback and stuff like that. But inside baseball, I break the fourth wall a little bit. Most people who listen to this know we record feedback and stuff a little bit later to kind of help with our schedule. And we're not sure, getting, our schedules together with you, Derek, just being with the big time difference and everything. It's not necessarily a guarantee that it'll be easy to work out. So, to get you back for a little bit just to do a feedback kind of section. So I wanted to make sure before, we jump into that, in case you can't come back and do that with us, which is fine, to thank you so much for being here with us. It was a lot of fun.
Yes.
Really glad that you took the time to come and chat with us about this movie.
Yes.
I am so glad to have been invited on board to talk to you guys about any movie at all, and to get to pick the movie was awesome. But I've really wanted to be on the podcast on Run for Your Lives since you guys started up, because you know how much I enjoy both of you guys. I really enjoy hanging out with you whenever we've had the opportunity to do it, and being able to podcast with you guys, because it is difficult. I know I'm a bit of a pain. I can't stay up till 2:00 in the morning to record with you guys. So thanks for working the schedule and making sure that we could do this, because it's been a lot of fun.
And any time that we would love to have you back as many times as we can, because you are an absolute pleasure.
Next week, 10 p.m. my time.
Be thinking about your next movie, Derek, because we usually, it's been a custom that any of our guests get to pick the movie that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. And because I think when you talk about a movie that you already have seen and that you really enjoy, you can bring the passion, and that comes out when you're talking about it. So, yeah.
Absolutely. So, again, just in case you can't come back for feedback and stuff, that's why I also really wanted to make sure for our listeners, if you enjoyed listening to Derek, which why the hell would you not? He's a absolute treat of a man. Then why don't you fill everybody in on where else they can hear you, what's going on, plug away to your heart's content on anything you want the world to know. Where can we find the amazing Derek O'Neill?
I don't know where you can find the amazing Derek O'Neill, but you can find me on TV Podcast Industries, my main podcast. I've been podcasting for about 6 years, doing various TV shows over the last couple of years. We just finished up WandaVision, the Marvel TV show, over on Disney Plus. I just finished that up a couple of weeks ago. This weekend, which is St. Patrick's weekend, Falcon and the Winter Soldier is coming out on Disney Plus, and that's our next big show coming out. So we'll be doing all 6 episodes of that, episode by episode, week by week. We're about 555 episodes into the podcast. So there's quite a lot of me out there, and I edit it all, so I hear my own voice in my own head. Yep. Perfectly pitched and edited all the time. So that's where you find me, tvpodcastindustries.com, or just search TV Podcast Industries on any good or evil podcast catcher.
I've heard a lot of different stuff that you have covered, you and John and Chris and other people that have been through there. And I think my favorite, you mentioned the good and evil, because I remember my favorite thing, which I think was kind of a little separate podcast that you guys did for a short time, just as a one-off, because it was just a limited series. But you did cover Good Omens on Amazon Prime.
Yes, we did.
Oh my gosh, that was a lot of fun to listen to you guys break that down. And that one. That's my recommendation to listeners. If you want to listen to something that Derek has done, the Marvel stuff is always great, but if you're a fan of Good Omens, just to hear the way that they break that down episode by episode, and that one is a very fun listen. And that's a limited series, so you can always go back and watch and listen to those podcasts at any time.
Yeah.
Exactly, just 6 episodes and done in co-production with Jason Kibasi on the Podcastica Network. So you can get that over there on Podcastica. I love that because that's one of my favorite books. Neil Gaiman, one of my favorite authors. So seeing a book that he co-wrote being transferred to screen so lovingly and brilliantly was great, and being able to do it with John, my partner, podcasting just about the two of us podcasting about that show. It was so much fun, so much fun. Really enjoyed that. So good check, Pake.
All right. Thank you so much. Now that is our feedback phone, and we are going to have to get to that feedback real quick.
Yeah. You better answer that, Pake.
Yes.
Like the bat phone. I love it.
This first bit of feedback right here comes from our good friend Maria, and excited to hear from her. We have not a lot on Grabbers, if really anything on Grabbers, because the one voicemail we have is Steve. And sometimes he doesn't watch the movie, so we will see how we get to with that. But I'll talk to you guys about that in a little bit. But we do have a little bit of feedback on Jurassic Park 3 from last week, and that is always awesome. I'm glad to hear. Again, we've said, if you have any thoughts on movies we've already covered, or, after you've listened to an episode, you want to say something, then reach out. And that's exactly what these people did. And I'm so glad that they did, because it's always great to hear from our friends and fans and listeners.
Yes.
So again, Maria, this is the first one. She said, just listen to your episode. I really enjoyed it. Glad this movie got some attention. I know I'm in the minority, but I really like this movie.
I think it does deserve a lot of love. I think sometimes people just try to look at it so much as that sequel, and it doesn't measure up to the first two. So I think on its own, it's pretty good, and I'm glad that you enjoyed it as well. And the next one is from Declan. And he's from the Jurassic Park, Jurassic World Facebook group. He said, I really enjoyed listening to this. Was nice to get a different look at the movie by breaking it down like that. And he's referring to our podcast on it.
Yay. Thanks, Declan.
So I referred him to our other two, covering The Lost World and Jurassic Park, and let him know that we would be covering Camp Cretaceous, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, and of course, Jurassic World Dominion when we get it next year.
Yes, definitely. And if he listens to other movies and other stuff as well, then, and if he hears this, then thanks for, giving us some feedback and checking it out. We really appreciate it.
Definitely.
But then to get into grabbers this week, of course, we do have the one voicemail from Steve, like I mentioned. So let's see what he's got to say. I'm always like, I don't know. I'm excited.
I know. I guess we'll hear it right now.
Hey, Daphne, Pake, and Derek. Happy St. Patrick's Day. I don't know if I'm going to get this in on time. I just messaged Daphne to see if you guys haven't recorded yet, but I'm going to send it anyway. Just a great shout out to Derek. I love your podcast, TV Podcast Industries. I love that you I just love the format of it. I love that you keep it clean. And even though some of that you don't like, that you have to keep it clean, I appreciate that. And I want to echo what was said of others about your podcast, that it really cleared up a lot of things and helped me out with WandaVision. And also Pake and Daphne, I'm so excited for you guys to have him on and podcast with him. I wish I had been able to see the movie. I didn't get a chance to rent it or somehow get grabbers. I did watch some of the trailer and it looked kind of fun. So I might in the future try to grab it. But I definitely wanted to send that shout out and just say thank you for all that you guys do and happy St. Patrick's Day.
Thank you, Steve. Happy St. Patrick's Day to you too. And yeah, you know what? I am totally okay with it. That was feedback for Derek, and he always is worth that. He always deserves loving positive feedback. He's such an awesome guy, and we're really glad that we could have him on. Unfortunately, he's not here for the feedback section, but it was an honor to have Derek on with us to talk about this movie. It was a lot of fun, and we are definitely going to have him back at some point. We will do what we have to do to make that happen.
Yes, we are. I think we've already talked about a couple of movies that he may be interested in covering with us. And thank you, Steve, for sending in your feedback. I really do recommend that you watch Grabbers, because I think it is a movie that you could really get into.
Yeah.
So I hope that you will watch it and then leave us feedback on a later episode so we can find out what you thought of it.
Absolutely. And that ties into what I was going to say next, which is, since we didn't get a lot of feedback necessarily for this one, which I understand because it's not on any streaming services or anything right now, you kind of have to go out of your way to like rent it or buy it through like iTunes or Amazon or whatever like that. So I get that. But if you get a chance to watch it, and if you are interested, or if you just have any feedback for what we had to say after covering it, we always love to hear back from you guys anytime, just like Maria and Declan did this week for Jurassic Park 3. So if you have any feedback for, Grabbers, you can still send that in to us, and we will always, play it or read it and talk about it here. Plus any, feedback for what we have going on next week and any other movie that we've covered or something you want us to cover. Or if you just want to send us a sweet little message telling us how much you love us. We appreciate that too. No, any feedback is always welcome for anything. There's not really any parameters. So we just love hearing from you guys. And
definitely.
If you want to do that, of course, I'll go through the list again. Just always make sure to remind everybody, or if this is the first time you're listening and you want to know how to get a hold of us, I'll let you know you can submit any kind of feedback through Facebook at facebook.com/runforyourlivespodcast. You can email us or send voicemails to us through email at runforyourlivespodcast@gmail.com. You can hit us up on Twitter at RFYL Podcast, Instagram at Run For Your Lives Podcast. And if all that is a lot of jargon and .coms, then you can just go to one.com, go to runforyourlivespodcast.com, and you will find all of the links to all of our social media pages, all of the podcast players, Spotify, Apple, Audible, Stitcher, Pandora. We're everywhere. So you can find everything that way. Just go to our website. Again, that's runforyourlivespodcast.com. And you can always leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and things like that. We will appreciate it wholeheartedly.
Yes, we will.
All right. I'll give a couple of shout outs to stuff that's going on in our little podcast universe with friends and people that we stick with. And, of course, Panels to Pixels, we always shout out because that's a lot going on right now. They will be back later this week to cover Falcon and Winter Soldier. That does start tomorrow, technically Friday, but then, late Thursday night is usually when I'm watching it, and a lot of people. So, so that does start up this week. So Panels to Pixels will be covering that as that comes out. So if you want to keep up with that, and I'm sure, actually, I don't have it here in my notes, but I'm very willing to bet that TV Podcast Industries, Derek, it will be covering that as well over there. So
absolutely.
You can also go check out him talking about Falcon and Winter Soldier as well. And then, TV Podcast Industries. I know he plugged it earlier, so I think you got all of that.
Yeah. They actually did the documentary. They broke down the documentary about the making of WandaVision.
Ooh. I still need to watch that.
So they did that as well. That came out earlier this week, I believe.
Awesome. So a lot of good stuff to listen to. And then as well, the Walking Dead cast on Podcastica. You can go to podcastica.com to get links for the Walking Dead cast and other Podcastica podcasts. Of course, The Walking Dead is back right now for their kind of season 10C kind of extended episodes that they're running, these like 6 episodes. And I guess it's technically episode 19 of season 10, but the third episode of this little like extended season was incredible this week. So if you're a Walking Dead fan and you've seen it and you know how good that was, it's a blast to go and listen to Jason and Lucy break that down because it was awesome.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
And then, I'm trying to think what else is coming up on Podcastica stuff. This is not in the notes again. I'm just kind of going, I know besides Falcon and Winter Soldier, there's some more comic book superhero goodness. Well, goodness, depending on who you're talking to, that comes out the same day. It comes out this week also. The Zack Snyder director's cut for Justice League drops this week also. And over on House Podcastica, Jason and Rich and a couple other guys that I don't know. He's got like 4 people. But like the whole like 4-hour movie, they're going to like break that down and talk about it. Whether they liked it or not, they just want to discuss kind of what it is. So if you're a DC fan or just interested to hear what they have to say about that, go check that out as well. When it comes out. It's not out yet because the movie's not out yet. But I'm sure it'll be coming out pretty soon sometime in the next week. So next week on Run for Your Lives, why don't you go ahead and tell people what's going on here?
So next week, we are going to continue our countdown to Godzilla vs. Kong by discussing Godzilla, King of the Monsters. We will be joined by a good friend of ours who is an expert on Godzilla and the lore and is able to give a lot more background information on the king himself, as well as Ghidorah and Mothra and more. So there's a lot more coming next week.
Yes, that's fun. So Godzilla, we're getting close. It comes out.
I know.
So soon. And I'm excited for it. And so it's been fun to kind of go through these movies and rewatch them and relive them. I think it's been your first time to see all of them other than the first Godzilla. So
yeah,
that's been
it has.
interesting.
It's definitely been interesting to watch them so close to this not final, but this next one being released. So I'm really excited though. It's kind of been a great build up to Godzilla vs. Kong because went into it thinking, okay, I'm Godzilla all the way. And now I'm kind of like, oh, but I love Kong Skull Island. And now I'm really torn up and not sure who I'm supposed to root for. Yeah. So I guess we'll see.
It'll be fun. So stick around because, probably a week or two after Godzilla vs. Kong comes out, then we will be covering that. So if you got HBO Max or if you're brave enough to go out to theaters, if you have theaters around you that are open and doing it, then if you get a chance to go see the movie when it comes out soon, then give us some feedback, let us know, and we will be covering that pretty soon after it comes out. We'll give you a couple of weeks. But
we want to give you some time to go to actually see it before we recap it.
Yes.
So
but all right, I think that's about it.
That brings us to the end of our episode. Once again, we want to thank our good friend Derek for joining us to talk all things Grabbers.
Yes.
And be sure to check out all of his podcasts over at TV Podcast Industries. We really appreciate it, Derek. Thanks for coming on, and we hope to have you back soon.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, we've reached the end of the show.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for listening, as always. I am Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And if you have to run from rolling alien predators that are allergic to alcohol, you'd better run for your lives.
Happy St. Patrick's Day, and bye-bye.